Hello friends and welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit about fundamental functions of science today, and specifically, what if science is wrong? Can science be wrong? The answer of course is easy and clear. Of course, science can be wrong and science has been wrong, but unlike any other process of thought and discovery, science has built-in systems to identify when things are incorrect and try to fix them. You might have heard about peer-reviewed journals. That is a check valve for all scientific process and all scientific discovery. If I'm presenting some information either new or altering something we already know, I have to publish it in a peer-reviewed journal in order for it to gain any validity. A peer-reviewed journal is a journal that is only interested in science, and it is a subscription-based model. In other words, it does not get a lot of advertising funds or any external pressure, so no one controls what is published in it. But even then, it is not an editor, it's not a single person deciding what the journal publishes and what the journal is not, but it's a group of peers called peer reviewers, and by peers we mean experts in that area, that read the submitted articles, submitted research, and see if it has merit, and all three have to agree that this is a worthy for publication work. If they do not agree, it can be returned to the author for clarifications or additions, or simply just be rejected. This process is just wonderful. First of all, it does not depend on one person to make the decision, i.e. an editor. Secondly, it is a blind review, and by blind review means that when the peer reviewers receive the article, they have no idea who wrote it, so they cannot be a bias for or against the author or authors. It is very important that this is understood. So if someone very well known submits something for publication, or someone that has never published anything before submits something for publication, the evaluation is based on the merit, not at all on the name, the reputation, or any other factor. I'm a peer reviewer of 3 journals, and I've been a peer reviewer for over a decade, and I can tell you that I really like that aspect, not only as a peer reviewer, but also as a published author. And the peer reviewer's job, of course, is to make reasonable assessments. In other words, it is not possible for the peer reviewers to check that everything is incorrect. What we check as a peer reviewer, and I can tell you what I check as a peer reviewer, is that what I read is plausible, it's reasonable, it follows sound scientific process and sound scientific methodology, etc. If I have any concerns about those issues, I will not recommend it. Can an article pass peer review and then proven to be incorrect down the road? Absolutely. But that is the first check valve. There is an additional check valve, or I should say additional check valves, that come into place after we publish. After we publish, the community, the scientific community, the experts look at this work, and quite often a number of them will choose to replicate the experiment or replicate the situation that's presented to them. Now, the reasons one might choose to replicate a study can be different. For example, I might have an initial negative response to a study, and I will have to replicate it to see if what I get is similar or not, or I might love the study and I want to replicate it so I can be certain that what I understand and what I read is correct. In either case, if a study cannot be replicated, it will be rebuffed, it will be repudiated by the journals. That's why it's very important when someone talks about research, when someone talks about a scientist saying something, it has very little value until that person is published in peer-reviewed journal, and some time has passed to allow the community to replicate and validate or reject the findings. It is not very common that peer-reviewed articles are found to be fraudulent or incorrect, but it has happened, and I suspect it will happen in the future. The check valve works. It is very important. We are not awestruck by any specific person and say, oh my God, if that person XYZ said it, it must be true, let's follow it. This is where science totally deviates and becomes a much more substantial truth-finding machine. We do not care about who wrote something when we peer review it, and even if we did, there is absolutely no way to know. When I receive articles for peer review, they arrive either in an envelope in a print form without any identifying information, or via my email, again with all identifying information concerning the authors removed. So when I read it, I'm simply forced to look at the merit of what I'm reading. There is absolutely nothing else that can influence if my vote will be to publish or not to publish. The peer reviewers are not allowed to talk with each other. In fact, I have no idea where the other reviewers live, what the other reviewers' names are. There is no possible way for me to communicate with them. Again, that is a great check valve, because 2 or 3 people cannot collaborate to present something as true when it is not. Most everything else, the media, philosophy, with all due respect to religion, has 0 check valves. Someone can interpret something, and if that someone is very well known, respected, or followed, then that someone can have a profound influence in if that event is going to move forward or not, if it will be presented to the public. In science, none of this applies. In science, we have a pure process that we identify if something worth looking further or not, and when we decide it looks good, then the science community will validate it. That is why it is very important. We see now in the news that XYZ person made a statement. Here it goes, folks. Even if a very famous and very well regarded scientist makes a statement, or a group of scientists make a statement, it really does not worth much. It is an opinion. They are entitled to their opinion. But unless what they claim has been peer reviewed, has been published, and we have an opportunity to experimentally validate or reject it, it's simply an opinion. It is not accepted in the science folklore. It is not accepted as a fact unless those conditions are met. I think it's very important to understand how science works, so there is no confusion and there is no doubt that when scientific discoveries are presented to you, they are very, very well vetted. It is not an opinion. Science presents no opinion. In the same token, however, nothing that we present in science is 100%. There is no such thing as certainty. There are possible ways in which something can be misrepresented, something may be misconstrued, or even with the very important check valves we put into scientific knowledge, something might pass through the cracks. And even though long term it will eventually be caught, on short term it is in danger. And the reason why that's relevant now is because we see a lot of traffic of people for or against a hypothesis, again not a theory, but a hypothesis that the COVID-19 or the COVID SARS-2 virus was man-made. My personal opinion, again is my opinion, based on the evidence I've seen, is that that is not a very likely scenario. But notice, I don't know. I say it's not very likely, but I would be disingenuous if it say it is not possible. Of course it is possible. It is not very likely for a couple of reasons, but that is a whole different subject. But as a scientist, I have to be open to the possibility that it is. In other words, if I say, well, based with the data that I have available to me, I don't think it is possible, so end of story, I'm a very bad scientist. The story must be investigated. If there is any indication that something that is possible might have happened, it is our responsibility to investigate it and see if it is truly a likely scenario or not. So the current hypotheses are still hypotheses. Do not be fooled. It does not mean that the virus was man-made, but it does not mean that the virus is not man-made, even though the current scientific thought, the current scientific accepted position is that it was not a man-made virus. I'm looking forward to see real research, that it is published, that it is vetted, so I can know myself. Because right now, of course, I have a doubt, even though I don't think it is the case, I cannot say that conclusively. I have a doubt. Stay safe, ask questions, and I'm going to be with you very soon. Stay safe, friends.